One question that Echoes of Wisdom addresses but does not answer is why Link and Zelda can move about the still world without being stilled. The game is very clear that they want you to question the still world and its properties. At the beginning of the game, after Zelda is rescued from her prison cell by Tri, the conversation goes out of its way to point attention to the fact that Impa cannot see Tri. Later, after we rescue Minister Left from the still world, we see that Left can see Tri, and this surprises Tri. We are reminded that Impa couldn't see Tri. Left takes us to Lubury, Link's mentor. Lubury can also see Tri, and posits that it's because both he and Left have been stolen away by rifts. This draws the connection with being stolen away to being able to see Tri. This is a very important detail that relates to why Link and Zelda can move about the still world. Every other child or adult that gets stolen by the rifts end up in this comatose state, stuck in the void that is the still world until they are either rescued by the Tris or consumed by the void entirely. So why are Link and Zelda able to move about freely? The logical conclusion might be that it's because of their roles as the priestess and hero of prophecy, but as you could tell by the thumbnail, I don't believe that's the answer. I think it has to do with something else. But first, this is Chat Nation, and today we're exploring the lore and history within Echoes of Wisdom. If you enjoy Zelda content, then you should check out my channel for more Zelda videos. And this is your warning that there are story spoilers for Echoes of Wisdom. Let's get into it. It would be best to discuss the still world before we can answer the question, and in order to understand the still world we need to talk about the backstory presented in Echoes of Wisdom. In the very beginning of the universe, there was just Null. Null was a dark being who lived in this vast nothingness. Living organisms would attempt to grow within this nothingness, but then Null would swallow them up, intent on preserving the nothingness. The nothingness, or the void, is described by whichever golden goddess you meet second. The three golden goddesses, Din, Nehru, and Furore, together created the world and imprisoned Null within it so that life could grow and flourish without the threat of being swallowed up. The takeaway is that the still world is actually inside the world. We meet Null in the still world after defeating the boss within the stilled Hyrule Castle. So since Null is in the still world, we get a confirmation that we are within his prison when visiting the still world. The rifts serve as a path between the world's surface and the inside of the world, a shell surrounding the void. Now, what's really interesting about this plot choice is that we have seen this story before. In Ocarina of Time, the Deku Tree shares this story with us to explain the origin of the world and the creation of the Triforce. In Ocarina of Time, we are told that Furore created all life forms. So it's possible that what was omitted from the Echoes of Wisdom version of the story is that it was actually Furore trying to create life in the void. This is when the conflict with Null began, because Null kept swallowing up Furore's creations. Suffice to say, there really aren't any conflicts within the story presented in Ocarina of Time. It simply adds a layer to it. Now, instead of simply creating a world so that there could be a world, we learn that they did so to seal away Null. But Null wouldn't go away quietly. In an effort to break free from its prison, Null began to tear at the fabric of the world by creating rifts in it. These rifts would swallow chunks of the world into his void. Theoretically, Null could swallow the world up and return the universe to the void. But the goddesses had a plan for this. This is where we introduce the Tris. The goddesses also created these ethereal creatures called Tris, which were left to protect the world from Null's advances. When Null would create rifts in the world, the Tris would repair the rifts by creating echoes of the sections of the world and put the world back the way it was. And that's an interesting note. Theoretically, over time, the world has simply become an echo of what the goddesses originally created. You can visit the stilled versions of the world after you complete the related dungeons, even though on the surface you can see and visit the sections of the world the Tri restored. And that brings us to exploring the still world itself. You access the still world through these rifts. For most people, this is not a good thing. See, if you come into contact with a rift, you could be swallowed up and sent to the still world. You become stuck and forced into a comatose state as your body lies in the still world. The only way to return to Hyrule from the still world is for the rift to be repaired by the Tris. Once this happens, you don't remember your time in the rift, but depending on how long you are stilled for, you are changed. For children and people who spend too much time stilled, something is taken from them. For example, when Link was a kid, he was stolen away by a rift, and when he was returned, he had lost the ability to speak. While most of the characters we meet during the events of the game don't appear affected, they weren't trapped long enough to lose something about themselves. But they do come back changed. During the game, we see that if you were returned from a rift, you could see Tri. This certainly implies that there is a spiritual or otherworldly quality to the still world. The game goes out of its way to make clear that you cannot see Tri unless you have been to the still world like I talked about in the introduction. Remember earlier I mentioned that the Tris create echoes of the world it repairs, rather than returning the stolen land back. This doesn't apply to people. People are returned to the world. So the Tris have to use their power, imbued by the goddesses, to transport people from the still world to Hyrule. But this doesn't seem necessary for our two protagonists, Link and Zelda. Link and Zelda are able to safely navigate the still world without losing themselves completely. Just before the beginning of the game, the Echo of Ganon steals Zelda and takes her to the Soothorn Ruins. She is captured and contained within Ganon's prison. This is when Link comes along, battles Ganon, and frees the princess. The outcome of this battle also leads to a rift being opened and Link being sucked in. Link rescues Zelda and she is able to avoid the same fate as Link. After rifts swallow up the king and his aides, Nolt creates echoes of them in order to steal Zelda away. Zelda is then thrown in jail, which is when she is introduced to Tri. Now we just talked about going to the still world seeming to be the requirement for people to see Tri, yet Tri approaches Zelda and she can see Tri. How is this possible? She is the priestess of wisdom foretold by prophecy. What this translates to for long-standing fans of the series is that she bears the blood of the goddess Hylia. She bears the power of a goddess within her. Let's set that to the side for a second and talk about Link. Link is the other half of that prophecy. He is the hero of courage. Again, for long-standing fans, this is the spirit of the hero. But this isn't enough to keep Link protected from the effects of the still world. Remember, we learned from Blueberry's diary that as a child, Link was stolen away. It is my theory that the first time Link was stolen away, he actually was stilled, just like every other adult and child who is stolen away. We are explicitly told in his diary that Link lost his voice due to being stolen away by the rift. He wasn't shielded from the effects of being stilled because of the spirit of the hero or being the hero of prophecy. Technically, he's always been the hero of prophecy, but we see Link freely walking about the still world after the battle inside the stilled Hyrule Castle. So why is it that he can walk around now and not the first time he went? Simple. It's because he's been stilled before. Remember when the Tris repair a rift, they create echoes of the land masses and structures that replace the lost pieces of the world. Tri explicitly says that they use their echo ability to restore the world to the way it was. For example, we can see in the still world under Hyrule Castle fragments of Castletown that existed in stilled Castletown. This does not apply to people. The Tris do not create echoes of the people stolen away, but rather they bring them out of the world and back to Hyrule. These people have come into direct contact with the Tris, ethereal creatures created by the goddesses. My theory is that these people now have a sort of residual power that stays with them after the Tris use said power to remove them from the still world. It's like a blessing being bestowed upon them. Anyone who has been stilled and brought back could theoretically walk around the still world, and luckily we have one such example of this happening, and it's Link. We also learn from Blueberry that Link has been training with the sword created for him to be able to rescue stolen Hylians from the rifts, and we also know that he's been successful at it. If you approach Conde wearing the disguise outfit, he'll tell you that this outfit brings him great joy because he once fell into a rift and this outfit reminds him of being saved from that rift. That's why Conde can see Tri when Zelda and Tri first meet him, because he was stolen away and rescued by Link. So now going back to Zelda. She was able to freely walk around the still world without having been before, but that doesn't break my theory. See, that blessing being bestowed upon the rescued Hylians is coming from the goddesses. Zelda is the prophesized priestess because she has the blood of the goddess. Her blood is that of the goddess Hylia, and thus she is special, just like Tri says. And if you're thinking that Hylia isn't a factor in this game and thus is not a valid point to make, may I point you to the goddess statue lying below the castle? So my theory explains why Link and Zelda can freely walk around the still world, a question specifically called out in this game. Now the last thing that I want to talk about is a bit out of my depth, but after some research I've been able to do, plus having some conversations, the answer to why you can see Tri after visiting the still world might have its roots in Shintoism, a religion and belief system with a heavy following in Japan. Within the legend of Izanami and Izanagi, the central deities, or kami in the central creation myth, there are several references to how visiting the spiritual plane gives you the ability to see spirits or yokai, and higher kami. The still world, as we've discussed in this video, is treated as a spiritual world. Now again, this is a bit beyond my scope of knowledge, but with Zelda being a Japanese developed game, it's very likely that this religious belief fuels this specific piece of the story. So what does all this mean for Echoes of Wisdom? Why can Link and Zelda move about freely? It's my theory that having been to the still world is what gives you this blessing to move around the still world on your own. The first time you go, if you are not blessed by the goddesses, then you are stilled. If you aren't rescued in enough time, then you would eventually fade away, sucked into the void. But if you are blessed by the goddesses, then you are free to navigate the spiritual world. After Link was rescued the first time he went in, he was blessed, and now he can move about freely. As for Zelda, she is special because she carries the blood of the goddess, and thus already has this blessing. The Tries, being ethereal creatures created by the goddesses, bless those who they rescue from the still world, and this is why they can see Tri once they return to Hyrule. And this concept of being blessed and being able to see the goddess's creations is rooted in Shintoism. So, what do you think about my theory? I hope you leave a comment and let me know what you thought, or if you see it a different way. If you enjoyed the video, I'd greatly appreciate it if you gave it a like, and if you checked out one of my many shorts that I post regularly on other Echoes of Wisdom theories. Until next time, let's continue the conversation, Chat Nation. I'd like to thank rchewlett, LoruleanHistorian, and the Dream Shrine for helping me with the research in this video. I'd also like to shout out my channel members Ayrek Winter, Rainbow Love, and JBug. If you're interested in becoming a member of the channel and supporting what I do here on YouTube, please check out the join button below. Thanks.